Galaxy Book4 Edge is right here. This is the model with the brand new Snapdragon APU. I haven't reviewed a Samsung laptop before, so this is really nice because it's my first introduction to a Samsung laptop, and it's actually my first of the Snapdragon laptops as well. I picked up this model here. I've also picked up some other ones that are coming in the future. So I'm not putting all of my eggs in the basket of I have to do every single test on Snapdragon for the next months and months and months on the specific laptop, because I'm going to be doing comparative reviews, especially because it is very hard to compare, for example, this laptop right here with the Snapdragon processor to a totally different laptop, like a different brand, manufacturer, and then try to say how is AMD or Intel versus Snapdragon. That's a tough thing to do. So I actually have a Lenovo Yoga coming as well with the Snapdragon, kind of a mid-range one. I can compare that to the same laptop with 3 different chips. So this review here is a full review of this laptop, not just the Snapdragon. I did spec this out as high as I could. This one here has the highest end Snapdragon with that most powerful GPU. So of course there is going to be some game testing in this video. Now I have been watching a lot of different reviewers. I've also been reading a lot of different reviews, and I've been reading a lot of community chatter out there. People have some issues with these laptops saying, okay, you know, the gaming performance isn't really there. You know, they claimed all these gaming performance. I don't really remember Samsung or Qualcomm really promoting gaming performance overall on these laptops. They did promote GPU performance, so I will be doing not just gaming on this laptop to do a test of that. I will also be doing a bit of productivity. I'm going to be doing some video editing and video exports. You'll see that in this video here, just to kind of see how that hedges against a similarly spec'd out AMD laptop and Intel laptop, just for an example, just so you get a rough idea of what it's like. This review here is going to be on this laptop here. This was a beautiful, beautiful, super, super thin Windows laptop. This is what I would consider like an actual MacBook killer. People throw that term around a lot. I've used it a few times here and there. But I mean, yeah, MacBook killer, there's a couple of criteria to really get there. First of all, the most important thing is battery life, right? People buy Macs because of incredible battery life. This thing has outstanding battery life. The best battery life on any Windows laptop I've ever tested in my life. And that's factoring in a larger battery on a brand new AMD-based machine that I claim has really, really good battery life. So that's something right off the bat. You're going to see when we get to the battery life section of this laptop, it's staggeringly good. Other things, other advantages, obviously beautiful OLED screen, awesome speakers, all of that. But really what it is here is this is a laptop that's not designed for gamers, right? I've seen people chatting online about gaming performance. You know, that'll come as drivers develop. These laptops are brand new. These chips are brand new. There has to be drivers from the actual chip manufacturers or the laptop manufacturers. There also needs to be game development updates from the game developers. However, as it stands right now, this laptop is a truly, truly outstanding MacBook-like experience that you can get on Windows. So in this review, we're going to look at the Samsung Galaxy Book4 Edge right here on its own merits. We don't need to always compare every single laptop to one another. This is a brand new laptop. What I'm going to do is see how good this laptop is on its own and how it may fare for different types of uses. And here we go. This is the brand new Snapdragon-based Samsung laptop. I decided to get the 16-inch model. I also decided to get the highest spec. So this is the highest spec Snapdragon you can get right now in a laptop. The reason is because, for one, I just wanted to see what it could do. Go with the best. Why not just test what it can do? I also wanted to go with 16-inch because then it should, in theory, have better access to cooling and performance. So that's good. And I'm also going to be bringing in a Yoga Lenovo that also has a Snapdragon, but it has a tier down from this. So I'll be able to do a nice comparison between, you know, what can this highest end one do versus kind of what a slightly lower. Oh yeah, nice and sleek. So let's have a first look at it. So we get a light, very, very light metal color, silver, very light. Yeah, definitely not a gunmetal or anything like that. Super, super light metal there. Same on the bottom, all metal. So metal top, metal bottom. Intake there, rubber feet. This thing might be a bit of a pain to get into. I'm probably gonna have to take these off and then pry it off would be my assumption. Yeah, so this is like a USB dongle type thing, right? You can see that there. Look how it's thinner than, it's about as thin as the actual USB dongle, like the actual head part of it. It's almost exactly, actually. 1548, so that's about 3.3, 3.4 pounds, somewhere around there. The charger doesn't weigh anything. It's super light. Yeah, 17. It's gonna be very reflective. It's a semi-reflective screen, I think. Yeah, so it does. It is, you know, AMOLED screen, but you can see by that kind of bluish tinge of my light here, right? It's a semi anti-reflective, which is good. It's not going to be like super aggressive anti-reflective, but it will bring down some of the reflectivity. Very, very nice. So it does have, it's definitely a silver. It has like the lightest touch of blue. It's almost not there. It's like a cold silver look to it. That looks good. Massive trackpad. You get your kind of darker gray keys there. Very simple looking inside there. Tiny little camera bump out there. Right, it's a very simplistic looking keyboard. Very, very simplistic, clean looking presentation here. Very, very nice. I like that. Let's look at the ports now. So on the left side of the laptop, we get two USB-C, HDMI out, two USB-C, HDMI. Right side of the laptop, SD card, micro SD card, and USB-A. So it's nice. You do get a legacy USB-A. You get headphones, which is nice. If you're using SD cards, so if you're doing video editing, that kind of stuff, perfect. So good port, actually. You know, you get three USB ports, two of them being USB-C, HDMI as well. So 6-inch laptop, you'd kind of hope that. This knife is ever so slightly dulled on the tip. Here we go. That's actually very easy to get off. They're clearly not glued in, which is good, so I can be a little more aggressive now. Okay, so we're going to go with a relatively small Phillips head. Okay, so it's really hard to get into this laptop. I actually had to put a little bit of torque on the chassis, so I actually used my thumbs, just put the tiniest amount of torque. I actually took this metal. I was just able to get that under, just enough to get that under that lip there. As you can see, once that was under, I actually held it there, kind of like that. It was just sitting there, and then I took one of these and slid it in, because it's not possible to really get one of these in. There's going to be a lot of clips. Right? Just take your time. I like to do twisting like that. See how I'm doing that? Just a little bit of a twist. Doesn't do too much torque as a result. So inside now, bottom of the device here, intake, basically just covered there. And here is a look inside of the laptop. So not a gigantic battery, 60 watt-hour battery. Apparently these chips in general are quite energy efficient. So, you know, if you slapped like 100 watts of this thing, it would probably last forever, but 60 watt-hours is still respectable. It's also very thin, right? Very thin laptop, so the battery has to be thin. Most of it, if it is just kind of surface area, but the actual depth of it is not very large. Speaker here, speaker here. Yeah, I guess it's kind of like MacBook style. It just kind of shoots sound out the side there, you can see. Interesting design there. You don't have any exposed NVMe here anywhere on the device here. So it's not like you're going to be slapping in another NVMe right here very easily. Dual fan setup, larger fan on the left, smaller fan on the right. And then you are going to have that basic kind of large cooling pad, kind of large cooling surface there. So again, these chips don't run super hot in general from what I've seen, but they do pull a decent amount of watts. So we'll see how well this thing can cool overall. There's your Wi-Fi antenna running into here. I don't even know where the Wi-Fi chip is on this thing, so it's not very upgradable. It's kind of like opening up a MacBook, to be honest. You don't really see much inside of this thing, other than, I guess you could swap out the battery. If your speakers break, I guess you could change those out. Okay, so let's have a look at the keyboard and the trackpad. So you can see here that the keyboard is very, very low profile. It might even be lower profile than a Mac. Maybe not, maybe the same. Right, it's a very, very low profile keyboard. Full-size keyboard though, right? So you get full-size typing, and then you get numpad on the side, which is fantastic. I mean, you're getting into a large 16-inch laptop. MacBooks don't have them. People just writing all day. Is that all they do? If you're going to do any type of professional work, you're going to want to be able to crunch numbers like that. So I can see why there would be a numpad over here. The body is obviously this really nice metal. These have kind of a rubbery texture, I guess. Is that the right term? Similar to a Microsoft Surface. If you ever use a Microsoft Surface book, Microsoft Surface laptop, they have this kind of rubberized texture, like kind of gray. Rather than being metallic feeling, it's a rubberized. It feels very nice. Not a ton of travel, but decent for how thin it is. Right? Definitely low profile, definitely low travel keyboard, I'll say, for both of them. But let's do a quick typing test here and see if I actually like the feeling of them. I don't normally like low profile keyboard. Yeah, so the keyboard is actually, it's nice. It is not my type of keyboard whatsoever. I prefer much more key travel. Also prefer much larger keys, but it's a very thin laptop, like MacBook Air level thin. There has to be compromises made, I suppose. I would like to see, I mean, the travel's okay, actually, to be honest. I don't mind the travel. I just wish the actual key caps were slightly taller. If you're a touch typist and you get used to this, I think you could really bang out an essay pretty quick on it. I only made a couple errors that whole time, but I really had to think about what I was doing because there's not a lot of separation between the keys. It's actually better than a MacBook keyboard, for sure. Like, don't at me, MacBook users. I don't like MacBook keyboards. I find them to be, I don't know, I just don't like them. They just feel like chiclety and just not good. These feel pretty nice. It's not my type of keyboard. Like I said, I prefer a larger key with more travel, but I can see people actually very much quite liking this keyboard if you're a low profile kind of person. If you're a low profile kind of person, you're actually going to like it quite a bit. Trackpad is nice and smooth, right? This is, nice smooth metal. This is smoother even. The click on it, let's have a quick listen here. Lots of click space even up here, right? You get quite a bit, right? So there is a backlight, right? But it's not super strong. That's, let's go through here. Let's change a different mode. So that's 0, 30, 60, 100, right? Then you might want to have that on there. So it'll be nice, I guess, if you're using this in like a very dark room. But it's not very strong, put it that way. But I mean, it'll get the job done. Right click here, you have to be a little bit over. I don't also necessarily need such a gigantic trackpad, but it doesn't really bother me. Like, I'm actually reaching over it when I'm typing. My hands might gently touch it or anything, but it doesn't seem like it's moving, right? That's moving, and then when I'm typing, right, it's not moving up here. I've heard from people that the new Windows Copilot shenanigans are more invasive than ever. Never seen this before in my life. Let Windows apps know your location. Never seen this before. So this is a brand new thing here. Yeah, I don't like that. I actually said no when I installed Windows, or when I set up Windows. I said no. I don't want you to know that. And it defaulted to on, right? So I don't like that. I don't like that it's doing that type of thing. So you're potentially, I've heard that there's a little bit more invasive stuff. I actually turn all these off, to be honest. I come in here and I turn all this stuff off, right? I go through and I turn all this stuff off. You can do it, it's up to you, but I don't like telemetry. I'm not like a paranoid person. It's just, why does my device have to send all this crap? I apologize if I've caused any inconvenience. Have a great day. You're gone, bro. Whatever. I don't like this. It's not AI, but I don't like this algorithmic learning type thing, whatever. So probably, your standard kind of Samsung Galaxy stuff. So we get Bixby, Samsung Auto Super Resolution. Never seen that before. That's a new Microsoft thing. I installed Cinebench. That's fine. Copilot. I'm gonna leave it on, I guess. Color engine is probably for the screen. AMOLED, probably leave that on. Display profile, I'd leave that on. Dolby stuff, leave that on. Galaxy Book Experience, this is generic kind of bloaty stuff. You can leave it on, you can take it off, it's your pick. I'll just leave it on because I want the default experience. Good Notes for Galaxy. I mean, it's a touchscreen, so maybe you want to leave that. Writing tool, it doesn't have a pen, but again, you may leave it if you want. Anything else weird in here? Microsoft Whiteboard, that's a writing thing as well. A lot of Galaxy. Look at all the Samsung stuff. Holy smokes. Samsung Studio, Samsung Phone, screen recorder, all that Samsung stuff. I don't know. You can take it off if you want. You can leave it. It's your call. I'd leave a lot of the display stuff and the touch stuff, but there's a lot of Samsung stuff on here. Okay, let's check out this Samsung Settings app. See if there's anything interesting in here. Some Bluetooth crap. Sound. I guess you could tweak your audio. I'm not going to do that right now because the audio was good, but you can tweak it if need be. Display, I guess you can change it. That's cool. So you have warm and cool in here. You can go like that there. Auto mode. So you can go with AMOLED native, which is probably what we're in. You can go with natural sRGB mode. It looks a little muted. Photo editing, Adobe RGB mode. That's quite nice, obviously. Movie, DCI-P3. I'm used to DCI-P3. I use that more often than not. However, this is an AMOLED screen, so typically you're going to want to go with the AMOLED settings. HDR's in here as well. What else do we have in here? dark mode, whatever, that's generic stuff. That's good though. I like the screen modes there. That's not a Windows type feature. This is the type thing you can come in and tweak here. Very good. Security and privacy. Advanced features here. You can switch on that stuff. Battery performance I do care about. Optimized, high performance, and quiet. We're going to go high performance because I'm going to do some Cinebench in a moment or two. Keyboard, what else we got in here? Controls, the keyboard, backlight. Yeah, so I don't know how well my camera is going to do justice to the screen, but it's a really, really nice screen. I'll try to capture it properly on camera, but it's a really nice screen. This is matte, so it's a black AMOLED, so like an OLED, AMOLED. So you're gonna get absolute blacks here. It is actually like a fairly reflective looking screen, but it does not glossy, which is interesting. A lot of the times when you get a glossy screen, the colors really pop off of that glossy screen, but you get really bad reflections. On the contrary, if you get a kind of anti-gloss or semi-matte type screen or full matte type OLED screen, you still get the absolute blacks in that, but the colors don't pop quite as much, even on an OLED type screen. However, you then get massively reduced reflections. Somehow, I'm not sure what Samsung's doing here, but it does still have a pretty glossy kind of look to it where the colors pop and it looks kind of semi-glossy, right? But like normally I would be like, you'd be able to see me right there. You can't see me at all. At least I don't think you can, right? You can kind of see me moving there on the left here, right? So there's some wizardry from Samsung. I don't know what they're doing here. They're managing to bring it very close to a glossy screen. Not quite, but very close to a glossy screen, but the color still pops. So I'm very impressed with whatever magic they've done there. So I'll give Samsung that. So yeah, let's just check the quick display here. This is a really nice screen. Again, it's an AMOLED screen, 1800p, so really nice, even above 1600p. So it's going to be nice and fine resolution at such a large screen. Obviously, if you're doing gaming, which you can do on this, apparently, you might want to lower the resolution or just use some type of scaling. Display 120 hertz. Oh, there's actually no lower. That's interesting. You're stuck with 120 hertz. This screen here has a good color space. You can see here in the reds. Hopefully it shows up on my camera, but that's the first place that I notice. If you have a crushed color space, even going from 100% DCI-P3 to sRGB, this red will start to become a little bit more washed out, leaning towards orange. And then when you get even to a lower color space, it almost gets like kind of washed out pinkish orange type thing. This is a high color space screen. So that looks fantastic. Very vivid. Nice and bright. Not the brightest screen, but bright. OLEDs and AMOLEDs don't often get super bright. Blacks look fantastic there. That's kind of what I'm seeing there. Fantastic blacks. Obviously it's an AMOLED. Looking good. All right, so I expect all these colors to look really nice. Let's get something a little bit more dynamic. Another Samsung. Right, these greens are very nice on this as well because it's that high color space screen. It's going to look fantastic. It's very, very vibrant. It does have that kind of leaning towards glossy, not a full super glossy, but a little bit more towards the glossy. And as a result, the colors pop a lot off of the screen. It's very enjoyable. Yeah, it's a really nice screen. Move a little bit further in. Yeah, so this is a true 10 out of 10 screen. I've tested a few really nice screens in 2024. This would be at the top. I'm not sure if it's better than the absolute best, but this is at least in like S tier 10 out of 10 screen. It's a very nice screen. High refresh rate, 120 hertz, bright. It's not going to be crazy bright like a mini LED. OLEDs and AMOLEDs just often typically don't get that bright, but it's bright enough. Like it's totally bright enough. It's a semi-glossy screen, so it's not super reflective to the point of just driving me ballistic, but does have a little bit of a glossy, which does make the colors pop more. Nice color space on it too. 1800p is nice and fine at this size of the screen here. So this is a very nice screen. If you're looking for a screen that's basically going to be perfect for doing content consumption as well as content creation, this is a really nice screen for that. Okay, we're going to do my audio test here now. This has a quad speaker setup. Apparently it has, the big woofers down there. I think they're like 5-watt woofers, and then some tweeter setup. So we'll see how it sounds here. Let's move that back slightly. And we'll go through the volume here. We'll set it to basically half to start. So if you have headphones, you may want to watch them. Normally YouTube does normalize the sound a bit. Ooh, it's going to sound good. Okay. And turn it up. Okay, so the speakers are very nice, actually. There are louder laptops. It gets around 78 to 80 dB. There's some laptops that are louder out there. Absolutely. They have a little bit more, volume to them. There's also laptops with a little bit more boom to them, a little bit more bass. Those are typically much thicker laptops, though. Like this laptop here has a ton of good quality sound. Remember, look how thin this laptop is here, right? The actual laptop is considerably thinner than the tip part of the USB, and it's got a lot of bass. The absolute lowest end bass is not going to rival a MacBook 16-inch. Media consumption on this laptop is going to be fantastic. The screen itself is fantastic, and then the actual audio is fantastic. If you're doing creative tasks on it, if you're doing video editing, music editing, whatever type of professional task, having such a beautiful screen is going to be an absolute boon to your work. And then also having really good speakers is going to be a boon to your work there. So for, just general consumption purposes, it's quite nice. And then also professional tasks, creative style professional tasks, it's going to be fantastic. But don't just take it that. This, I don't lean into the creators. The average person who's not a creator still is going to enjoy a beautiful screen with awesome speakers. Yeah, so I guess we're just not going to have temperature data, unfortunately. Hardware info. I can try some other software after, but for now we're not going to have access to that. That's fine. We'll just check the performance here and the noise. I'll play around with it more and see if I can find something to measure sensors, because you can see here, we don't have that. You can get clocks on that, right? Core clocks up to 3,782. Yep, and it's got some battery stuff. So really, you're just going to get clocks on the CPU. About 46 dB. This is on maximum mode here. Let's kick down to what they call optimize, I guess. Ooh, immediately got quieter. Holy smokes. It just aggressively went down. I can hear it, but barely. It's barely audible. Let's go down one more. Didn't make a difference. Yeah, no difference between those two. High performance does matter. So it's actually pretty darn quiet in high performance mode, and it's really quiet in balance mode, and it just aggressively drops down. So we'll check those scores. I was messing around with the settings here. Okay, now let's have a look at some benchmarks. So you can see here that in Cinebench R23, the score is actually pretty bad on the Snapdragon 10,000. All things considered for what this chip is capable of, it's quite bad, but this is not a native ARM application. So we can see here on the right that I did run Cinebench 2024, and I picked the ARM native version. You can see here that the score is 936, which if you're not comfortable with this software is actually quite good. So you can see here that if you actually do relative comparisons, this is based on a CPU Monkey website. You can see here that this is just basically some Cinebench scores, and you can see that it is scoring quite a bit higher than an 8845HS, which is an outstanding CPU, and it's also scoring above an Intel 13500HX, and Intel typically does very, very well. Quite a good score here on the CPU here. Then I did some video exports. So I did 4K 60 video export. These are 10-minute videos, and this here, the first one is H2, and then I did HEVC, and you can see in both cases it's basically exactly the same, whichever format I used, about 14 minutes or so, which is actually slightly faster than I got on the Intel machine and the AMD machine that I did with an 8845HS. Obviously, if you had dedicated graphics, it would go a little bit faster, but overall, video editing on PowerDirector here is very good. You can see that I actually did it on battery as well afterwards, and it basically took the exact same amount of time. And you can see here it's pulling about 20 watts or so. On average, it's pulling about 30 or so, so pretty much as be expected here, and the performance is quite good even on battery mode. The SSD that's included is nothing special. Basically, it's going to be a top tier Gen 3 speed. Definitely not Gen 4, but it's okay. It's not going to have any issues realistically. I mean, that's still quite fast. You can see here that Wi-Fi it's a mixed. It's around 300 to 200 or so. So the Wi-Fi is a little bit weak on this laptop. But again, from day-to-day use, you're probably not going to notice, but it still could be a little bit faster, I think. If you actually look at battery life here, this is where things become absolutely outstanding here. You can see that I did try to run the battery down for a little while here. After 10 minutes or so, we're just basically sitting at about 3.2 up to under 4 watts, just kind of idling at 100% brightness, 120 hertz refresh rate. I don't like to fiddle with my settings. I just turn everything up. I do throw on, best power efficiency, and we're getting 17 or 18 hours. This is a relatively small battery too. This is a 60 watt hour battery. Now imagine this thing with something like an 80 watt hour battery or a 99.9 watt hour battery. We'd be looking at like multi-day battery life, like 30 hours. Then you can see I did some 1080p 60 YouTube, and it didn't make a big difference on battery life. We're still under 5 watts here of actual usage. So, I mean, we're still looking at probably 12 hours of YouTube playback on this very high resolution screen with their high refresh rate set to 120 hertz. So this specific laptop here is going to be an absolute battery champion. And this is the highest of the Snapdragon offerings. Of course, if you have a model with a low resolution screen, or if you have a model that you can turn it down to 60 hertz or whatever, or if you want to dim it down a little bit, you'll get even better battery life. But overall, the battery life on this laptop is truly outstanding. Okay, here's a look at the webcam. It's actually pretty wide. I'm not sitting that far back from it, so it's a pretty wide viewing angle. Light coming from the right, light coming from the left, a little bit from the front, not a ton. It's moderately well lit in here, and it's looking pretty good, I would say. Overall, it looks like really good polling rate, and it's doing a pretty good job of not oversaturating, undersaturating, despite the fact that this isn't the best lit room. I mean, you could probably stream with this thing. It's actually a really nice webcam overall. Okay, and here's an important one for me, and that is ArcGIS. I do GIS, I guess professionally, and it works. So, I mean, people are looking at these laptops for different purposes. I think this is going to be a big one for people. If you get a Mac doesn't support ArcGIS natively. It's a Windows app. So you have to go through like VMware and all this nonsense in that. Here you're going to get access to ArcGIS. In theory, it should run fine. We'll have to come in here and bring in some data. Yeah, and I mean, it's working. It's a little laggy, I would say. Like normally you'd expect a chip of this capability to be a little bit faster. But it feels like I'm using like a slightly older chip, basically, is what I'd say here, like a slightly older CPU. Right, so now we only have the permafrost that were correlated with these things, right? You can see how that is there. Turn that back off. So I clipped it. So it worked. Yeah, so I mean, ArcGIS works fine. So this is a very, very, very demanding software that people who potentially would be looking at an ARM processor, looking at a Snapdragon-based processor would be using ArcGIS for it because it's just the type of work people like me would do and want to have really good battery life. So it works. It's a little laggy, I would say. Probably, Esri just has to update some a little bit, get some more support for the chip. This chip should be flying through the software based on just how capable the chip is in general. That's working fine, but there's a little bit of lag when you're running tools, I would say. Probably some type of translation layer there between x86, x64, and this here. Okay, I was going to try some Ghost of Tsushima. It's not working. Pretty new game. I would hope that they have drivers for the Snapdragon, or the developers would have, but then it just crashes. You can see there. If this will launch up, I feel like it's gonna crash. Okay, so it can play Baldur's Gate, therefore I'm happy. This is 1600p native Ultra. You could do this on an AMD machine, Intel maybe. It's getting 15. I mean, that's better than I thought it would. So we'll try a little bit of scaling to start here, which I think scaling should work here. All right, we'll go FSR 2.2. We'll go balanced. We're getting about 19 FPS. The GPU in that, like, it's just not going to report. It doesn't know what to do with that. Performance. 22. It's becoming playable. I wouldn't consider that playable yet. Resolutions here, so let's go with maybe medium. And we'll go back here and we'll turn that back on. Maybe performance, because we're at the high resolution. Yeah, so 1600p, I mean, you could probably do it, but you'd have to really... This is the most challenging area in the game, by the way. So we'll go medium, balanced, and I just want to see... Yeah, so now you're at 30, and now you can play the game. This is Baldur's Gate, like the city of Baldur's Gate. It's the hardest area in the game, by far. You know, you play in other areas in the game, you're going to be looking at like this. We'll go out to other areas just to prove the point here. But this is medium, right? And this is a relatively turn-based game. Let's turn it down to low. Around what a Steam Deck can do, maybe? It's been a while since I tested a Steam Deck. There might be updates in that, but again, this chip has been out for a few days too, so... New area now, we're outdoors, and you can see the huge jump in performance. 41, we'll just use this over here. I don't know which is which, but 44, 42. Outdoor area, right? This is good here. You might get drops here. You can see you get hitching in that. That's a Baldur's Gate thing. But we're up to almost 50. Yeah, I mean, look at that. It's doing well. So you can play Baldur's Gate. We'll put it that way. Throw it on 1200p with some DLSS. Balance, not performance. This is low. I think we're on. Maybe I'll turn up some of the settings here. So we're on low. Normally I like to go models on medium and textures on medium. It just looks better, I guess I'd say. And it doesn't usually hit performance, like, yeah, 52. And it looks better. Immediately it looks better. The people look more like functional. Okay, so yeah, 45 or so, 60, there it goes. So yeah, I mean, it's medium 800p. So, you know, Steam Deck's 800p. So it's going to be the same resolution of the Steam Deck, and it's obviously very playable, right? I just turned off some of those like reflections in that because whatever. It's not that the GPU lacks performance, right? That's not the issue here. You can see that in Baldur's Gate. It was performing very well. The issue here is going to be compatibility. So you're going to have two things going on. One, you're going to have the game developers themselves. And here, for example, CD Projekt Red, and the other titles, it was Sony. They need to update their games so that the games are supporting the actual hardware. The second thing is Qualcomm needs to then update the Snapdragon drivers. And then you'll have those two things meshed together and you'll have a harmony. I did Intel Arc dedicated graphics when they first came out, and I was one of the only YouTubers covering it on a regular basis. And this is how it was. You'd get into a game and you get weird behaviors because, you know, maybe the Intel drivers weren't updated or the game itself wasn't updated to support Intel. They would both update it, so eventually the game developer would update it, and then Intel would update their drivers, and boom, you'd go from, you know, weird quirky behaviors to no quirky behaviors. You'd go from 20 FPS up to 180 FPS, like crazy improvements and things like that, right? In some cases, it was just minor tweaks. In some cases, it was massive 600% increases in performance. So that's what you need to expect here. I don't see any problems with the actual raw performance of the graphics card, which you could see in Baldur's Gate. The Baldur's Gate tests were fine. Right, for a really low wattage machine, I mean, so new, it was doing quite well. It could be that, you know, maybe the Snapdragon stuff, because, you know, there's an actual Windows version of that game and a Mac version of that game. So I don't know, maybe some of the code is a little bit more friendly, right? Maybe the drivers are a little bit more, maybe Larian decided to update them. I don't know. And that gives you proof that the GPU is capable. Don't buy this. This is not a gaming laptop, right? Don't buy this and say, oh, it can't game. No, that's not a gaming laptop, right? Anything for Intel at all that's not Core Ultra can't game. So you have one generation of Intel CPUs that can game. AMD, you know, they can generally game. You have two generations at least that can game very well. This is the first generation of this product. It is not a gaming laptop either. So don't buy it and dunk on it because it's not a gaming laptop. It's not a gaming laptop. So you need to realize that. However, the performance is there. Like you can see, we're getting 75 FPS here, right? And in Baldur's Gate, which we were at much higher settings, much more demanding game, and it was doing relatively well, I would say. Okay, so I've done my testing. It's been a couple days. What do I think of the Samsung Galaxy with the new Snapdragon here and the highest of the chip offerings right now, at least for that. I think it's fantastic. I mean, it's actually not that expensive. I would call it kind of expensive. I mean, for what it is, you know, it's all metal chassis, impossibly thin. It never shows up on camera, but this thing is like legitimately impossibly thin. It is such a thin laptop, like a MacBook Air, not even MacBook Pro. All metal design, relatively light, despite the fact that it's all metal. It's not going to be super light because it's all metal, obviously. You know, it's really nice, actually. The screen is actually outstanding. So, I mean, you know, the screen is a legitimate 10 out of 10. No problem there. The speakers are fantastic as well. For being such a thin laptop, they're very good speakers. I don't use touchscreens that much, but, you know, some people might really like it. Very nice. The keyboard is fine. It's not my style of keyboard, right? So I have to look at it objectively though. For me, I don't think it's my type of keyboard. However, in its class of this type of keyboard, it's fine. You know, it has very low key travel, right? But it's fine. And the actual keycaps themselves, the texture is nice. The snappiness is nice. So I don't actually have any problem with the keyboard. It's just not my style. Trackpad is immense and it's a nice trackpad. Again, I don't need such a large trackpad, but it's fine. I don't have any problems with it whatsoever. So, I mean, overall, like the design is really nice. About the same battery life or slightly more than the best that AMD has to offer, the 8845HS with a 80 watt hour battery. So, I mean, that's at least 20% more battery than AMD's best, if not slightly more. And it's leaps and bounds ahead of Intel. Intel's not even in the discussion. Like AMD destroys Intel when it comes to battery life. Even Intel's best, most efficient, AMD outdoes them easily. Then when you move into something like this, it's even more efficient. So, I mean, it's outstanding in that regard there. Software compatibility, I didn't have any issues. I ran GIS type software. I did productivity type software. I did video editing up here. It was fine. I don't have any problems with anything. Everything worked fine. The snappiness of the device is good. No issues there. Everything works perfectly. The negative of the laptop, I would say right now, is, I guess, gaming performance. I mean, the actual raw performance is going to be there. When you saw me test Baldur's Gate, it's definitely above a Steam Deck. So, I mean, this is like a first generation device coming out and outperforming. You know, it's a couple of years old, the Steam Deck and everything, but it's, you know, it's above that. So it's doing well. It's doing quite well, actually. And again, this is the most Halo offering, but there's definitely some issues with compatibility, right? Like, so the Sony titles just didn't even launch. The Witcher was doing some weird stuff with scaling on the resolution of the screen. So, I mean, you do get some weirdness when it comes to that, but that's just going to be, I mean, brand new chip, right? The drivers are going to need time to update. Game developers, the actual games themselves, are going to need more time to provide support for these chips. So I don't understand why people, you know, this comes out and then people are like going ballistic over the gaming performance. First of all, it's not a gaming laptop. It's not a gaming chip. This is not an NVIDIA or AMD dedicated graphics. I mean, if that was the case, yeah, I would understand like people being upset because it's like you bought a laptop with dedicated gaming graphics, and it's, you know, sold for that. This is not that. It's not designed for that. If you buy this and for some reason you're like, I don't know, wanting to game on it, like that's specifically why you buy a Snapdragon. First of all, don't do that. Don't buy a brand new like beta chip that you're going to want to like play games on, right? Just don't do that, right? Like just give it some time before you jump in and start playing games on it. Doesn't make sense to do that. Or if you buy it and you want to play games on it, realize that you're going to have some games that run well, some that don't, and you're going to have to mature with their games are going to mature as time goes on. So, you know, you're going to be playing a game and then maybe it doesn't work well, and then the next week all of a sudden it works well once there's better support. That's the laptop here. If you're interested in it, I mean, pick it up. If you want to play around some ARM stuff, I think ARM is at a point now. I think the Snapdragon chips here are at a point now where they are, you know, ready. They're ready for the average person to pick them up and start using them. You know, there's going to be some people who aren't going to benefit from them, you know, gaming types and that. But I think, you know, the average person who this laptop specifically is designed for, who it's targeting, I think they're going to have no issues with this laptop here.